Hello again, Michael Ware with the Iowa Firearms Coalition. We've got a special today. We've got Mark Vaughan here as the first vice president of the NRA, president of the Oklahoma Rifle Association. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today, Mark. It's good to see you again.
Good morning, Michael. It's great to be here, and I'm excited to talk about what's going on in Iowa.
Fantastic. Thank you. Real quick, just for everybody's edification, we didn't ask Mark on today to take an official position for NRA or down there in Oklahoma. We're asking him for his perspective. He spent a number of years in and around the Second Amendment, obviously a tremendous advocate and somebody with a full understanding. But we're looking for context, and I thought that Mark would be a great person to help us with this as somebody who's been where we're at, is where we're at, and understands this on a state and federal level. Are you okay with all that, Mark?
You bet, Mike. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, I'm speaking today simply as Mark Vaughan. I'm not representing the NRA or the Oklahoma Rifle Association, but being integral in those organizations, I do think I bring a strong perspective to this topic. So thank you.
Okay. I appreciate that. So let's delve right in. Basically, I have a list of questions that I've got over here on another screen that I'm going to look over and refer to because I laid them out so that I could ask them this morning. And what we've got is a situation where Iowa has, I guess what I'd say, some sort of Second Amendment hiccup at the moment. We're coming off well, actually, let me give a little history first. About 20 years ago, I would say that Iowa was ranked in the out of 50 states, 40-something for Second Amendment overall. So we didn't really have much going. It wasn't horrible around here, but it certainly wasn't great. And so over the last couple decades, we have seen Iowa's laws, we have seen regulations and policies, we've seen the spirit of the Second Amendment evolve and ascend from down around the bottom circle of the toilet bowl to arguably in maybe the top 5 of the entire nation. And we have a rich tradition of lawmakers, Democrats, Republicans. I mean, our first major win was with a Democrat House, Senate, and governor when we passed sweeping shall issue changes. It was unbelievable. And it was because of the spirit of the Second Amendment and advocates. And so we've made all these strides and we've pushed forward. I mean, we had 65% turnout at the ballot to usher in our Freedom Amendment, our right to keep and bear arms in Iowa's Constitution with strict scrutiny just a few years ago. So it gives you an idea how many people, regardless of their political persuasions, say yes to the Second Amendment. It's unbelievable. So we've done great things. And now we have this hiccup. We're like, well, haven't we done enough? Or we're kind of tired of this, or we're in pretty good shape, aren't we? So we've come to a position where we're stalling, and that's a really big problem. So let's look at this from a national perspective first. And I'd like to ask you this question. I wrote it down here. From a national perspective, how has Iowa's progress over the last 20 years been viewed by other states?
You bet, Michael. Well, there's no way to put it, but Iowa's transformation has been remarkable. You know, as you pointed out, 20 years ago or so, Iowa was at the bottom of rankings nationally for Second Amendment freedoms. Through your strong grassroots activism and support by your lawmakers, Iowa is now considered one of the strongest Second Amendment states in the country. And other states absolutely notice that progress, like Oklahoma. You know, we benchmark very much ourselves against Iowa because your progress has been so steadfast and so impactful. Iowa is certainly part of the conversations when other states ask how we can get better. So thank you.
Well, it should be interesting to note, and this isn't being braggadocious in any way. It's not, but this is contextual. I need people to understand these things. The NRA has a state association in almost every state of the nation. Okay, I think they actually do have one in every single state, and Iowa competes every year for top ranking. And out of the last 6 years in the nation, including Puerto Rico, out of the last 6 years, Iowa has won 4 out of the last 6 nations. I mean, number 1 in the nation. So that should give people the idea of again, not an IFC brag. I'm just saying, because this comes from our members. It comes from people, NRA members. It comes from people who are willing to engage and advocate. Okay.
Mhm.
But Iowa is doing exceedingly well on many levels. And so I'm very proud about that. And that's helped make Iowa successful. So let's talk about that real quick. This is the next question, Mark. What do you think allowed Iowa to make that kind of progress while some other states have struggled to move forward?
Well, I think Iowa's made up of strong grassroots advocates. These are not summer soldiers, right? These are folks and activists and advocates that are in it for the long haul, and they have strong communications with their lawmakers. They understand they're in the long game. This is a marathon, not a dash, and incremental improvements and support and advocacy over time. And that has built a strong foundation. The partnership Iowa has enjoyed with their state association and the national groups has been great. Um, and I think Iowans have a strong cultural uh, connection with freedom. I mean, it's something that's mighty important to them, and so it's just been the example the country has looked at as to how to achieve long-term success on this very important issue.
Well, you mentioned the word success, so let's delve into that real quick.
Hmm.
This is the next question I had. Sometimes success can create its own challenge. When a state has made a lot of progress, people can feel like maybe the job is finished. From where you
Hmm.
sit nationally, Mark, so this is more of a larger overview, okay, a 40,000
Hmm.
foot perspective. From where you
Hmm.
sit nationally, is that something you see?
Yes, I think that, and I struggle with this in Oklahoma. We Oklahoma has many parallels and similarities to Iowa.
Mhm.
We've made great progress here, uh, but you talk to the folks in New Mexico or Washington State or Oregon or Colorado. You know, I think they all wish that they had pushed harder and with more consistency, throughout the past 20 years, because they're struggling, as you know, with their Second Amendment rights. It's not unusual for people to slip into neutral or first gear when progress is being made. Such progress has been made. But the reality, the work of protecting constitutional rights, you can't stop it. It has momentum, and when it has momentum, the worst thing you can do absolutely is let that momentum subside, right? Because momentum carries you through the rocky times. And if you allow momentum to stop, it takes so much effort to get it back going. And oftentimes you can't get it back going,
Yeah.
frankly.
Well, we're talking basically about, in some ideas, the idea of a role model. This year at
Mhm.
2A Day, we had some folks from the NRA State Association next door in Nebraska,
Right.
NFOA. They came over and joined us. And I remember Joe was one of these guys that he visited with me that evening after the 2A Day was over. And he's like, "Do you realize that as a Nebraskan, I could walk into the Iowa's Capitol building carrying showed my credentials, and in I went." And I said,
Hmm.
and I was kind of shrugged it off. And so I'm guilty of this too, Mark. I kind of shrugged it off. I said, "Well, so what?" He's like, "Well, I can't do that next door in my own capital."
Right.
I said,
Right.
"Well, we'll go back there and say, hey, lawmaker, I was just over next door at Iowa, and this is what I could do. I was respected with my civil
Hmm.
rights next door, and I can't do that
Hmm.
here." And since
Hmm.
then, Mark, I'm told by Joe himself, they sit down with some lawmakers and they're like, "Wow, that's a change we think we should make," and they've already drafted legislation.
Sure.
I don't know where it's at the moment, but Iowa led as a next door neighbor, and these people came from Nebraska to Iowa and then went back and said, "Look what they're doing. Why can't we emulate this?" And
Mm.
so there's a responsibility with role models, and that takes me into the next question that I had for you.
Yeah.
Here it is. You mentioned earlier that other states look to Iowa. Can you expand on that? And what does Iowa represent nationally right now?
You bet. Well, as we've stated, as I've stated, Iowa is viewed as a leader. It's what we look to. And you mentioned capital carry in your state house. That's something Oklahoma is working on as well here. So yeah, that's a prime example of this state look to Iowa for guidance and leadership around that. Um, how did you do that in Iowa? You you had strong activists that worked with your lawmakers and over a long period of time. Iowa's become the model for responsible and effective Second Amendment policy and advocacy. And whether Iowans realize that or not, they are an example for this country. And I don't think that those wonderful folks there in Iowa want to give that up. I mean,
Oh, no.
it's powerful.
No. So okay, that leads really well into the next question that I had written down here. When a state becomes a leader, does it also create a responsibility to keep moving forward?
Yeah. Well, of course it does. I mean, it is, leadership brings with it responsibility. We have a responsibility to our children and grandchildren coming up. If we step off the gas, if we let that flywheel that is moving with such great momentum, if we let it pause, it's unlikely to gain that back again. Other states are watching and learning from Iowa, and me personally, I want to see Iowa leading the charge as they have these past few decades. And when a state becomes a leader on the Second Amendment, it has an opportunity and a strong responsibility to keep setting that example, Michael.
Okay, so we've got a number of bills in the state house right now that either need to move or need to move with some changes. So what message would you give to Iowa legislators?
Well, you bet. Well, first of all, Michael, I'd say, hey, make sure that they realize and that your team and your advocates and activists there in Iowa, tell them that we appreciate their tremendous work and progress already made, that Iowa lawmakers deserve credit for building one of the strongest legal frameworks in the country around Second Amendment freedoms. But that progress should inspire continued leadership, not complacency, not taking your foot off the gas, not letting that flywheel stop its momentum. Even strong states can refine laws, close gaps, and strengthen the protections for their constituencies. Iowa is already one of the best states in America for Second Amendment rights. The obligation now from your lawmakers and your activists is to keep building on that success.
All right. Okay. So you just addressed the legislators. Now address the advocates. What do you believe that they need to do?
Right. Well, there again, I would say from the top of any mountain that grassroots activism is what has moved the needle in Iowa. It's been consistent. It's been strong progress. It's been an example to us all. And the best way to honor that effort is to continue pushing. Folks in New Mexico and even in Texas and Oregon and Washington State would love to be in Iowa's position right now. You cannot. This is to the activists out there in Iowa. You just can't give up your position. You've got to keep pushing. Steady, active pressure is going to win the day. Many states are still fighting battles that Iowa's already won, Michael. Success is something that you've got to protect.
I know we get insulated by where we are and what we're doing, and sometimes we don't take a look around at what's going on the battlefield. Any combat soldier will tell you when bullets start flying, if you're not advancing, you're in real trouble. And I don't want Iowa to fall into that trap. So in summation here, Iowa's done some really fantastic things over the last 20 years, and I'm very proud of our folks for that. I'm very proud of legislators. I'm very proud of advocates. I'm very proud of IFC and NRA and all the people that have come together to help make this happen. So the question for me really isn't whether Iowa's done enough. The question is are we willing to continue to lead And I
Right.
think that's really where we're at this morning.
You bet.
Well,
Well, Michael, you're absolutely right. I think that, and as I've said all along through this interview, Iowa is the leader. Let's maintain that leadership. Let's maintain that momentum. Because if you pause, it takes so much more work to get it back. So keep pushing.
yes, I agree. All right. Well, thank you. I just wanted to make this quick video. I'm really grateful for your time this morning. Thank you for setting this aside for everybody. Thank you for your continual work. I mean, the legislators, the advocates out here listening to this, they need to understand where you're at too, Mark.
Right.
You got a wife, you got a family, you've got things that you need to do on a daily basis,
Right.
but you set those things aside,
Mhm.
or because you love those things so much, you're willing to do these kinds of things to help us, just like the legislators are, just like the advocates are. So we understand where you're at. Thank you for your time. It's valuable. Thank you for coming on this morning, and thank you for this message. People needed to understand where we're at and where we need to be. Thank you for that.
Michael, thank you. And thank you all the good folks there in Iowa. Have a good day.
And you.